Hello, and welcome to a new iteration of Tea Time, where I'm hoping to turn this into a sort of Q&A series where I answer people's questions. What I'll be doing in a lot of my videos moving forward is putting in a pinned comment where people can ask questions, and those questions may be featured in the next Q&A video. With that in mind, I've already done a couple of videos with pinned questions, so we're going to have a look at some of those in today's video. So luciferthedevil asks, what got you into War Thunder? Well, I knew about War Thunder for a very long time. I think I first heard about it in 2013 or thereabouts, and then I started seeing those rather crappy sort of YouTube-y side-scroll ads for it about a year later. But what actually got me into it was the YouTuber Squire, when he was really pumping out a lot of War Thunder content. Back around 2015, 2016. I don't even know how I stumbled across his channel, I can't remember now. But that is what really piqued my interest in the game, and that's when I first downloaded the game, was early 2017, and I've been playing ever since. So Smarky Cinematics asks, what is your favourite aircraft? Well, if we're talking about War Thunder, my favourite aircraft is the Hurricane Mark 1 Late. It is an absolutely joyous thing to fly in game. It's very new player friendly, and it turns on a dime. If we're talking my favourite aircraft in general, I would say it is, again, a tie between the Hurricane, the Panavia Tornado, and possibly the F-14 Tomcat. I do like my swing wing Cold War jets, I will admit. But if we're talking props, I would honestly say maybe the Hurricane is my favourite aircraft, but jets, yeah, Tornado or the Tomcat. So Ash Main asks, how do I improve rudder controls using a joystick like a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro? So yeah, using rudder controls on a twist axis can be quite challenging, particularly when you're getting into a rather intense dogfight. You're using a lot of roll and pitch movements, and if you're gripping the joystick quite tightly, as you would in an intense situation, you can sometimes inadvertently twist the axis a bit, which obviously throws off accuracy. And also, in general, I think people struggle using rudder control with a twist axis. Now, the best way to sort of fix that is, I'll show you using my demo control setup here. So let's go to your axis. Now we'll set it up so that it is picking up the physical axis on the stick. And the reason I don't use my physical axis on this stick, as you can see, it is completely cactus. I'll need to beef up the dead zone a bit. There we go. Okay, so basically what you want to set up is non-linearity on a twist axis. I would bump it right up to maybe 1.5, 1.6. Non-linearity basically translates your input different. So the physical axis and the logical axis is different. So basically the physical axis is what you're doing to the stick, and the logical axis is what the game is going to be translating that to. So if you have non-linearity set, you can be twisting quite hard on your rudder, and it won't do it quite as hard in-game. This is particularly useful for fine rudder tuning, so see how I'm moving the stick. I'm barely twisting it, but it's actually quite a big physical movement. However, in the game, it's only translating to a very small change. That is my recommended setup. So set it up with a non-linearity of 1.4 to 1.6. and set up dead zones as needed, because you'll find after a lot of use, a lot of twist axis will just go all over the place. The other reason why this is probably going a bit haywire is it's trying to fight the axis on the other stick that I've also got plugged in. But yeah, non-linearity is the best way to go. Kevin Carr asks, what delay settings do you suggest using on bombs? It does depend on the aircraft and on the bombs, but my golden rule when I'm doing close air support, so bombing tanks in either sim or ground RB or ground sim, I usually use 1.5 seconds. Unless the bomb is particularly large, then I might bump it out to 2 seconds just to give me a little bit more time to get away. There are, of course, some notable exceptions on any bombs that are particularly huge that you would be dropping from altitude. I would run them on a 1 second fuse or even just a straight up assault fuse, but usually about 1.5 seconds is the good margin to use. So Brady Zink asks, I'm on Xbox and I use an Xbox controller. Do you have any tips on getting into sim and how to improve my effectiveness and grinding capabilities? So when it comes to using controllers, I'm pretty much not skilled to give advice on it, but I can give some general advice just because I've never really played the game with a game controller. My number one tip is to search for some guides on controller setups for Xbox and PS4. There are some excellent guides up on YouTube that I heartily recommend. The next thing would be is when you're actually mapping your controls, much like with the twist axis, when you're doing it with the controls, obviously make sure you get dead zones and non-linearity set up so that your inputs are being translated the way you want in-game, because some controller joysticks are going to be newer than others, depending on how long you've had the controllers. Some are going to be more sensitive, some are going to be less sensitive, some are going to have weird sensitivity issues, which might require a larger than average dead zone. The key to doing well in sim with controllers is your controller setup. Once you've got a controller setup you're comfortable with, you're going to be getting better at the game, which means you're going to be getting more RP and more silver lions per match. My one thing that I did find useful when I did try using a controller for a little bit, I've only probably got about 3 or 4 hours of controller time under my belt, is I actually found using controllers were quite good for CAS stuff. Because you're able to hold the controller quite comfortably as opposed to holding a larger, like, proper flight stick, I actually found it quite easy to keep the plane on a shallow dive when going into destroy tanks and pillboxes, so just something to bear in mind. Mr. Chris asks, what's the best way to aim underwing large cannon like on the Hurricane Mark IV? Since it's most destructive when the shells converge, would you have it set to 500 meters? 50 meters. Let me read that again. Here. Mr. Chris asks, what's the best way to aim underwing large cannon, like on the Hurricane Mark IV? Since it's most destructive when the shells converge, would you have it set to 50 meters? 50 meters could work. I personally have my convergence set at 400 meters, which might seem a bit weird considering you've got highly inaccurate big guns. But the reason I go with 400 meters is if I'm going to be engaging an aircraft with something like this, the maximum range I'll be engaging at is at 400 meters. It'll usually be less than that. Now, the reason my convergence is set at 400 meters is so that when I fire my shells, none of them are going to sort of cross through each other's path before we get to that 400 meter mark. When it comes to attacking aircraft, I usually attack ground attackers or heavy bombers, so they usually present large targets. And I will usually put my crosshair slightly to the left or slightly to the right of the fuselage of my target. So even though my cannons may not be converging dead center, I know for a fact that one of those big rounds is going to be landing in or around the fuselage or the wing roots because of the offset. And that's how I've gotten quite accurate with these sorts of weapons. Unicorn Man 777 asks, have you ever tried blindfolded archery? You don't know what you're missing. No, I have never tried blindfolded archery. I tried regular archery many years ago. Would have been 2003? 2004 maybe? It's been a very long time. It was a lot of fun. I would like to do it again, but no, I have not tried blindfolded archery yet. And Jack Mack asks, do you get sick with crazy VR dogfights? Surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, I'm pretty immune to the whole motion sickness thing. Long may it last. When I first got into VR, there was a bit of motion sickness for the first week. After fairly long play sessions, like say longer than 90 minutes. But after that first week, I've had nothing, really. The only time I sort of feel a bit off is if I try to play the game when I'm not feeling 100% great, like if I've got a cold or something. But aside from that, I get very minimal motion sickness. I've always been very lucky like that, which I'm very thankful for, because motion sickness is something that's pretty common in my family in general. A lot of people get car sick very easily and stuff like that. I don't. So I'm very thankful for that, and I'm hoping that that lasts for a very long time, because if I start getting motion sick with VR, I'm going to be a very, very sad person. But that's all the questions for today's video. As I said, I'm going to be pinning comments in my major videos moving forward for people to ask questions that can be answered in these sort of Q&A videos. Now, depending on how many questions I get, this might be a monthly thing, it might be a bi-weekly thing. It honestly depends on how many questions get asked and how much time I have to answer them, as some of them might be more complex and might require a bit more of a pre-prepared answer than me just answering on the spot. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments about this sort of format, and if you'd be interested in watching videos like this moving forward. And until then, I shall catch you all next time. Goodbye.